Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at WandaVision, Marvel's newest show, which just concluded. And this show split people like ass cheeks here. There was some people that really fucking hated the show, and then some that praised it as Marvel's best work. So let's just dive in. I'll let you know right away. Fucking hate sitcoms. I've never liked sitcoms, even as a kid growing up. I just couldn't really stand it. That laugh track is a thing of fucking nightmares. It ruins anything that it's in. I've never liked sitcoms, so this was really a bit of a rough genre for me to get excited about. But I really found myself kind of enjoying it. It wasn't like laughing out loud, slapping my knee at the sitcom jokes in WandaVision, but they were using the sitcom setting as a way of portraying a very interesting narrative and universe, and making the viewer constantly ask why. And that's when WandaVision's at its best. You get all kinds of decades of sitcoms, and it's very tongue-in-cheek, very self-aware, which I can appreciate, because it's not taking itself super seriously. But throughout these episodes in the sitcom, you're seeing things that just aren't right, you know? Like in the very first episode, at a dinner, there's a man that starts choking, and his wife just keeps saying, "Stop it," with a smile on her face, kind of teasing, but then as she keeps saying "stop it" a million times, she gets to be a little more fearful, not so much that her husband's choking to death, more so at the whole atmosphere, because something's not really going according to script. You can see fear set in on Wanda's face as well as Vision, and it's a really eerie scene that starts to set the tone to the viewer like, this isn't just a sitcom, there's clearly something more sinister going on here. And as the sitcom continues to go, more of these anomalies happen, and you're starting to piece together things, and a lot of fucking fan theories were popping up all over the place online, which was pretty cool because I haven't really seen too many these days, and I really enjoyed that. But by the end, I really felt like it started to lose its footing. Of course, all the fan theories, as always, are wrong, even though some of them are really fun food for thought to play with, but a lot of it was just kind of thrown out the window, going for a more generic conclusion. I am going to get into a little bit of spoiler territory here, because I do want to talk about it, since it is like my chief complaint with the show. So just fair warning, there's going to be some minor spoilers here. Nothing huge. I'm not going to fucking tell you Santa Claus isn't real and ruin the show or whatever, but just wanted to give that warning. So really, this show is two different shows that go ass to ass, and I don't think they work very well together. There's the sitcom portion of the show, which is the Wanda world that's been created, full of all kinds of wild shit that goes on there, and then the generic Marvel Cinematic Universe world, where you have S.W.O.R.D. that's been investigating. And everything involving S.W.O.R.D. is just really generic shit. You know, we're hacking in to see what's going on under the covers. We're using infrared drone technology to see if we can get a read on what's happening in there. And then it's just really boring. The characters, I think, are fun on the S.W.O.R.D. side, especially Jimmy in particular. I really enjoyed his character every scene he was in. But I really feel like it just didn't add very much. It was just so cliche from the S.W.O.R.D. side of things that I felt like it just took away from the more interesting and unique aspect of WandaVision, which was everything happening in Westview. The sitcom, why it was happening. Was Wanda the villain? She's done a lot of fucked up things with what she's doing in there. Is she's more of a villain than a protagonist? And it was really an interesting thing to play with, because Marvel hasn't really explored that very well, in my opinion, where they have like this character that is supposed to be a good guy doing some real fucked up shit. And that's what WandaVision really was to me in the beginning. But then by episode 6, it takes a huge turn for the worst, in my opinion. It gets painfully standard. There's still some elements of the good WandaVision left, but overall, it's a really generic conclusion to what I thought was a more interesting approach to a superhero story. The show spends about 7 episodes showing Wanda doing some fucked up shit, where she's basically torturing people and taking away their free will. And it's a character you can't really root for, but you can certainly sympathize with, given everything Wanda's been through. But by episode 7, and this is like the biggest spoiler here, they for some reason decide to bring in a new villain, an actual cliche standard cartoonish supervillain, like straight out of a fucking comic book. A villain comes in, it's like, I am actually evil, and this is why I'm evil, and here's some evil shit I've done. And then that's what happens. She now squares off against an evil bad person, and they have a superhero fight where they're throwing punches and shooting laser beams at each other and using magic at the end, and then that's really where it concludes. I felt like that was such a wet fart to send off this show that I thought did a great job of at least trying new things in the superhero genre. I just couldn't help but be really let down by the conclusion. And I really feel like this whole show could have done without Sword. Sword really didn't do much until like the very end when it got very generic. All they were doing were serving as a lens for the viewer to piece together what was happening, which is fine, of course, but I feel like maybe there could have been another way of doing that. Again, that's not really to say it was bad. Like, for example, Jimmy and Monica I think were really good, Darcy as well. Like, I thought they were good characters, but I really feel like that whole arc detracted from the more interesting aspects of WandaVision in Westview. And really, the end, I can't stress enough just how out of place that felt. It was like actual fucking 1940s comic book writing where everything is explained to you, just fucking beaten into your asshole about what's actually going on. The fucking supervillain comes in and monologues. I want power. I am here for power. I want all this power, power, power. Oh, you did this because of power. Like, it's so silly. And it was really just a big old letdown, to be honest, when probably like the last 2 episodes, I would say. Though there were still good moments in them, it really just kind of hindered a pretty decent show. So I'm just going to go ahead and plug WandaVision into the moist meter now. I'm going to give it a 70%. I think the show is very enjoyable and interesting. Even if you hate sitcoms like I do, there was still quite a bit to like about the show. I really enjoyed most aspects of it. And even with lackluster ending, it still was a fine experience. And I want to again say, like, the ending's not, like, bad, it's just disappointing. Like, it's still an entertaining ending. Like, the fighting's still good, everything looks good. It's a fucking Marvel show, so, I mean, obviously it's gonna look good. So there's no real problem with how the fight goes or anything. It's just, I felt like there could have been more they could have done with the conclusion, considering how long they spent setting up a very unique and interesting premise. But anyway, that's about it. Recently I've been hitting the weights extremely hard, trying to put on extra muscle, looking for at least 100 more pounds of muscle on this 5'6" frame, and in doing so, I've been using Raycons pretty much daily so that way I don't have a wire dangling in front of me when I'm lifting weights. As I've talked about numerous times now, I think a high quality pair of wireless earbuds are extremely important, and Raycon offer an incredible one. The Everyday E25 are still their best model yet, giving you 6 hours of playtime, seamless Bluetooth pairing, a compact design, comfortable, noise-isolating fit, super simple to set up, super quick to set up. They have the same amazing quality that you're used to from other premium audio brands, but at half the price. If you're interested in trying Raycon for yourself, you can go to buyraycon.com/moist to get 15% off your Raycon purchase, or just click the link in the description below. That's buyraycon.com/moist for 15% off. That's it. See ya.
This episode was brought to you by ExpressVPN.
Initiating moisture.
50 years from now, your grandchildren will be asking you if you saw Avengers Endgame in theaters, and the answer that you'll give them is most likely yes, because everyone, their grandmother, I'm sure people are even bringing corpses to the movie, everyone is seeing this fucking movie. And for good reason, it's 11 years in the making. This is the final chapter to 11 years of incredible innovation. I don't care about your opinion on superhero movies, they are nothing if not innovative. They are fucking impressive, if nothing else. What they've done, what the MCU has done, has never been done before, and it was done extremely, extremely well. I absolutely loved Infinity War. I'm not a huge superhero fan. I don't, count the days till the next superhero movie drops or anything. I don't have posters or body pillows, of superheroes or anything. But I do appreciate them when I see them. They're always pretty decently enjoyable. And Infinity War blew me away. I was extremely excited to see Endgame, and I've got to be honest, it's not as good as Infinity War. It is still a good movie with a satisfying conclusion, but I have to be upfront and tell you, it is not as good as Infinity War. It didn't reach that bar that Infinity War set. And I don't think it ever even had a chance, because Infinity War, they wrote themselves into the corner of being beaten and take away a lot of the Avengers. So you're left with just, a few of them, a very important few, mind you. And then you have to talk about the despair. So they spend the first hour or so of the movie in pure despair. Here's 5 years after the Thanos snap and everyone's been, wiped out into another dimension where there's no ejaculation or dreams or anything. They're all just gone. And now you have to see 5 years of the damage it's done to the Avengers and people in general, and it humanizes the entire crew. And it is enjoyable to see that. They use humor throughout some of those parts, and the humor lands as it normally does in MCU movies. And you also get this sense of dread, and you see the effect that it's had on them, and I appreciate that. However, that tone goes on for far too long. I'd say the first hour and a half, maybe even up to 2 hours of this movie, is just pretty uninteresting and a bit of a letdown. Their solution to the problem, I can't spoil anything, though I would like to because this is where most of my complaints are. The solution to the problem is a fun one. However, it's way past its welcome in the movie. It goes on far too long with far too little happening. And then at the end you get a very satisfying climactic battle, as you would expect. And that's very chaotic, a lot of fun. There's a lot of really cool badass moments, you know, fucking nuts being blasted by laser beams and fat fucking meaty hands being exchanged, broken bones, bruised faces. It's fun. I'm not a huge fan of like huge battle things because I think it gets a little too cluttered and a little too clunky looking, and it just kind of all over the place and makes my eyes want to shit. But in this movie, it's done very well. I enjoyed the last hour-ish, maybe a little less. The last 45 I thought was absolutely spectacular. But everything up to then was just very slow. And I don't want to use the word boring, but it kind of was boring because it just felt, without spoiling anything, it just felt like you were on a carnival ride, and that's it. It felt like you were watching someone's video giving a tribute to all these characters with a lot of fan service and stuff, and I don't use fan service in a negative way because I don't think it's a bad thing, but it just was so much. It seemed like the first 2 hours was just giving you like a brief overview of everything that 11 years has covered in a nutshell. And I found that, while it was cute to, you know, go through some of these things, I just found that to be very underwhelming. And speaking of underwhelming, Thanos in this movie is very underwhelming. After being this incredible landmark and making a good villain of Infinity War, he comes into this movie and he kind of sucks some ass. Like the first half of it, he's just like this emo sulking teen. Yeah, I did my destiny. I'm totally fine with whatever. Let the darkness come. Ugh. I thought he'd start fucking reading poetry out of his book that he has Pierce the Veil lyrics etched into. It was depressing to see him utilized this way. He wasn't the same incredible villain from the last movie. Towards the end, he picks up and he's a little bit better, but even then, he's not like this imposing, well-rounded character. And I guess since this movie's not supposed to be a self-contained movie, this is a movie you're supposed to go in having seen Infinity War and hopefully having been on this 11-year ride with them. So I can understand them not making him again like a fully fleshed out great character. But to have him come in here and kind of be like a shell of his former self, in my opinion, it was just kind of underwhelming. He was great in the final climactic fights and shit, but otherwise he just didn't really have the same power or the same, you know, he didn't command the scenes the way he did in Infinity War, which was a letdown. The movie is not bad by any stretch of imagination. I'm just pointing out the things that I found to be underwhelming for a conclusion of this magnitude. I think it was an absolutely great movie. I did enjoy it. I wouldn't say I was let down. I just have to say it didn't live up to what you would hope and expect after seeing Infinity War. All the characters, there was a lot of development in this movie with the characters, and I really appreciated that. All of the characters got so much more depth to them throughout, and it turned it from more of like superheroes doing superhero ass-pounding shit to superheroes being broken people for a lot of it and trying to bounce back after suffering a hard loss. It was very touching, but again, it does overstay its welcome in that area. I really enjoyed the conclusion. I think it wraps it all up nicely. I'd say 11 years of hard work with a nice payoff at the end here, but I would have hoped and expected a little more. Plugging this shit into the moist meter, I'm giving Avengers Endgame an 80%. A movie that I'm sure all of you are going to see anyway, and you absolutely should see because it is good, it is enjoyable, but there are things that I think it didn't do all that well, or things it didn't do enough, things it did too much. It didn't hit all of the great notes that Infinity War did, and that's alright. That's not that big of a deal. Fucking liked it, and that's it.
If I had the Infinity Stones in my hand, you'd probably think I'd get rid of Thanos, but no. There's more important things out there, like internet privacy and access to the sites you want to visit. That's why I'd use the stones to conjure me up some ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN is the one-stop solution to making your credit card information harder to hack when you're shopping, to encrypting your internet data so that others can't sniff your information over the network, to lifting your internet restrictions to deliver unlimited access to video, music, social media from across the globe. That means you can access Netflix, YouTube, HBO, Spotify, Prime Video, and many more apps in countries that may have placed limitations on them. ExpressVPN has the fastest speeds, which means you'll be able to explore the unfiltered internet in style and safety. The ExpressVPN treatment doesn't end there. They also have apps for every device: Windows, iOS, Android, Mac, Linux, your routers, and more. It's easy to use, just one click and you're connected. There's a reason this is the #1 VPN service as rated by TechRadar. I and Moistmeter HQ use ExpressVPN so angry filmmakers can't hack us to alter our Moistmeter ratings, and I'm glad to say they haven't succeeded in their attempts so far. We also use it frequently to watch movies that may or may not be available on Netflix in some regions. Right now, you can get ExpressVPN for less than $7 a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Take back your internet privacy today and find out how you can get 3 months free by clicking the link in the description. That's expressvpn.com/moist. So you can take back your privacy today with ExpressVPN.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at Shang-Chi, The Legend of the Ten Rings. It's a new Marvel movie, and as I've said in the past, I don't really get excited for Marvel shit anymore. I find it to always be enjoyable when I do watch it, but it's hard to get like hyped up about it, like fucking pumping my fist in the air like, yeah, more Marvel. Because every single week there's something new from Marvel, it feels like. So I've just been inundated with the superhero shit from them. So I had no clue what this movie was. I'd never heard of it before. I never knew it was coming out. The title even confused me. I thought it was like an Ariana Grande thing with the 10 rings or some shit. So I had no expectations of this movie at all. And I don't know the character Shang-Chi. The only thing I knew about this is that people seemed to really like it on Twitter. And that was enough to convince me that it was worth going to the theater to see. And I'm happy to say they were right. The movie is really good. I had a great time watching it. This movie is pretty different from other MCU movies, at least in the first half of it, where it focuses on martial arts for its action. And the martial arts is really good. Like, it's very competent. I've talked about this before, but I grew up on martial arts movies. When I was a kid, I would watch the shit out of every Jet Li and Jackie Chan movie possible. I was importing fucking Jackie Chan VHS tapes. Well, not me personally, because I was like 8 years old, and I didn't know how to use the internet or how to like import things. I just knew how to piss my pants and cry. So my parents would get like these VHS tapes of Jackie Chan. A lot of them weren't even like English dubbed, so I wouldn't even understand the dialogue, but I would understand the ass beating that I was watching. So martial arts movies, probably the most like sentimental genre to me, and I have the softest spot for it. I love martial arts movies. I think they're extremely entertaining. They're just absolutely a joy to watch, and Shang-Chi does a great job with all of its martial arts fighting scenes. I mentioned it's only in the first half though, like where it really shines, and that's because in the second half of the movie, it focuses more on your standard MCU shit, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because it looks good and it still is really cool to watch. But I have to say I was a bit disappointed because the first half has all this great martial arts action with like a camera that just sits there and lets you like soak in the good choreography and the martial arts. There's even like moments where I got Jackie Chan vibes where Shang-Chi, he gets his jacket ripped off, he uses his jacket as a weapon, he puts his jacket back on, takes his jacket back off, whips someone's dick hole right off with it, puts his jacket back on. Like, it was really cool. The martial arts was great. And then in the second half, it completely gets overshadowed by your standard like superhero stuff. All of a sudden then you get introduced to like magical items and magical things and a big spectacle of CGI, and there is no martial arts left. And like I said, it's not bad because it still looks good, it is still entertaining, but it is disappointing to go from like this really cool, you know, martial arts where you can feel like the impact, you can see like a lot of the cool influences from like Jackie Chan's timeless work kind of put in there and then thrown away for the second half. A little disappointing, but it is still fine. Like, I wasn't like mad at the ending and how it went or anything. I still had a great time. I just would have liked to see the martial arts still carry the torch of like, this is our prime action for this movie, as opposed to going like, okay, now we've had martial arts, now it's time for CGI fest of magical superpowers and magic items. So not really like a huge complaint, but it is something that I wanted to at least mention. I think the big standout in this movie is the villain, though. I really like the villain, Mandarin. Like, he was really a great villain. He wasn't like this cartoonishly evil guy. And I know I've said this about quite a few villains now, but it seems like movies are finally starting to get it that people don't really like the cartoonishly evil, dumb, stupid numbnuts that isn't like a relatable or understandable character. Like Black Widow had this problem where its villain was just fucking super stupid. I think it's been long enough now I can just talk about it. Like his superpower, if you can call it that, is he's stinky, he smells. So when he gets smelt, he can no longer be damaged by the person that smells him. Like, that's super dumb. Like, that's really dumb, and the character didn't have, like, an emotional story. I didn't like anything about that guy. But in a couple other movies as well from the Marvel Universe, I think they do a good job with their villains, and I think Mandarin is one of their best. He's a character that has a really tragic story. You know, he was a very cartoonishly evil guy at one point, but then he meets a woman that changes everything for him, and she becomes his entire world. And I don't want to get into spoilers here, but things start to change, and his entire character revolves around the loss of his wife and how he's coping with it, how he's dealing with it, and the grief that follows. And I think it just does a great job. I think the villain is someone that you can understand the perspective of when you're watching the movie, and maybe even at times root for. It's just a really well-written villain, played beautifully by the actor. I believe it's Tony Leung. I'm not super familiar with their work, but I thought he did a great job of portraying like this villain who really has an emotional story and is going on a journey for a reason I think a lot of people will be able to like understand and really really get. It's not like a villain that you're like constantly rooting against, like we gotta fucking kill this guy, take his goddamn head off, this is a bad guy. I don't think anyone's gonna go watch this movie and be like, yeah, that guy's fucking evil, you know? So I just thought that was really like a big moment that stood out to me. Like, this is a really cool villain. And the other characters are fine too. I think Shang-Chi was done really well, mainly because they were just like a super fucking turbo badass for the whole movie. I also like Awkwafina's character as the comic relief, though she's not like an annoying comic relief. She's there to make jokes sometimes, but also be serious when it's needed too. So it's not like too much or anything. But there is a character that I would like to talk about a little bit more, and that's Shang-Chi's sister in this movie. Now, I don't think she's like a bad character, I just don't think they even remembered she was in the movie at certain points. When she is on screen, she's usually putting fist to asshole. Like, she is going hard, she's beating a lot of dudes up, and it looks great. I also like her signature weapon of like the little knife on a string. I've always liked that weapon. I don't know what the fuck it's called, but I think it's a really cool weapon to watch, and when she uses it, it's very nice to look at. But she's not really like an important character in the story, it feels like. She doesn't really have like her signature moment where it's like, man, we would have been fucked if she wasn't here. Whereas even the comic relief character has probably one of the most important moments in the whole film. So I would have liked to see her be more important to the actual narrative and pushing things forward, but it is still just really cool watching her fight because she's really fucking cool. But anyway, let's just plug this into the Moist Meter. I think Shang-Chi is a really enjoyable Marvel movie. I think this is one of their better ones in recent times. I'm going to give this an 85% because I do feel like there is a period where it does drag a bit and doesn't really get a whole lot done in that time frame, and I also was a bit disappointed by a couple other things towards the end. But other than that, I really, really enjoyed it. I fucking love martial arts movies, and this felt to me like an old school martial arts movie for at least half the runtime, and god damn it, I'll take what I can get. So yeah, that's about it. See ya.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're looking at Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I feel like with every Marvel movie I start the same way, saying like, I'm getting a little tired of Marvel movies, but this time it's a little different because I really like Doctor Strange. I thought the first one was really fun, and I think he's just a really enjoyable character. So for the first time in a long time, I believed in wet dreams and actually had some pretty high expectations of a Marvel film, and I'm happy to say I wasn't disappointed. I thought the movie was really good, especially in the visual aspects. There were some really creative visuals in this movie that I really appreciated. It felt so different from most modern Marvel movies in that it wasn't afraid to be like violent. In most other Marvel movies, I feel like they shy away from showing any kind of like brutality or anything like that, but not here. I don't know what's spoiler and what's not, so I won't get too deep into it, but the main villain will straight up just like obliterate people, burn them to a crisp, and you see their flesh being like flayed from their body and burned alive. There's even a scene where she makes, where the villain, whoever it could be, makes a guy's head explode from the inside out, and then there's like blood pouring out of his face. Also splits another person in half. Like, it goes kind of hard. Like, it gets a little Insano style, which I really appreciated. It felt very different. And visually, I thought it was so creative because it's very trippy, as you would expect from Doctor Strange. It explores the multiverse, so it's showing you a lot of cool things. They'll go through like a dimension of pure paint, where they're like existing as sentient paint before falling into another dimension where they're cartoon characters, fucking Looney Tunes. Like, it's really interesting. And there's also even elements of like horror when the main villain is hunting them down. They'll have like jump scares. Granted, they're not like the best jump scares, nor is the horror super well executed, but it is different. They'll be like, one of the characters is, hallucinating and tripping out. They'll look at the teacup and all of a sudden it's a bunch of waves in the middle of the ocean. Then all of a sudden a plate that they're holding falls to the side and then breaks against the wall as everything's like twisting and contorting. They look down and there's like P's that are spelling out doom or death or something. Like, it was just cool to see how creative they got. The main villain's like using reflections in the water in order to capture and kill people. Like, I just really thought it was just going to keep getting wackier and wackier. Like, all of a sudden a character sits down to take a shit, but the shit takes them instead and blasts them into a different dimension through their own butthole or something crazy. I just really appreciated how free they were to explore some wacky concepts for their visuals, and I thought it really played nicely into the film. That being said, though, I don't think the use of magic was ever that great. Like, the main villain is very clear, they're extremely powerful, but they only ever use one main spell for the most part, other than when they're like grabbing things with their magic. And that's just shooting fireballs, basically. And that's the majority of magic. They're just shooting fireballs, which are super strong, don't get me wrong, but it's not like the most creative use of the magic, I don't feel. And I also got that impression for like Doctor Strange and Wong, because they also just fight like using the lasso, like using a lasso, using a whip, using swords, or just using more projectiles as well, or just like their standard shield that they use. It never really explored like really crazy magic to give you that sense of, holy shit, these are like incredible sorcerers and incredible magic users using some fucking outrageous forbidden jutsu here. It's just like, they're shooting projectiles at each other again. That's the majority of the magic you see here. And while it's not bad or anything, I just have to say it didn't like meet what I expected when it came to this is the most powerful magic you'll ever see. It was just more like, more laser beams, cool. Which, again, isn't the biggest deal in the world. It's not a huge complaint. I guess I was just expecting more. But there is creative times where they use magic. For example, there's a scene where Doctor Strange is fighting an opponent and he's fighting using music. So he gets like a bunch of musical notes and he lifts them off a page and fires them at the guy. And then he fires back by catching the music notes in like the lines for music. I'm already blanking on the name. As you can tell, I'm not super well versed with classical music reading. But he catches the notes in the line and then shoots the line of music back. And all the while it's playing those notes that they're shooting. And it's really a cool scene. But it's not like the magic seems that impressive. It's like, oh, he's shooting very tiny music notes. And that's how he defeats that opponent. And it's like, surely musical notes wouldn't kill somebody like that. Like, it could have been like a cool moment, but it shouldn't have been the crux of where a very powerful character dies because he got hit with a fucking G sharp. You know what I mean? Anyway, though, very creative, very cool. I just expected a little bit more from like the versatility of magic. I guess versatility of magic's the wrong way of saying it. Magic that makes you feel like, holy shit, these guys could actually just fucking blow up an entire dimension. I never got that sense. I just got the sense of, there's some more magic I've seen before. Aside from the musical note stuff, that was cool. But again, not like the most powerful display of power ever. But anyway, I'm harping on that too much. I did like the movie a lot. I thought the story was good, characters were good. They introduced a new character in this film who I imagine is going to be very important in this entire phase 2 of the MCU. And it's a character that can hop through the multiverse. And I think they really do this super well. I think the character is good enough. I don't think they had enough time to shine and really show the full capabilities of it, but this is the first movie they're in, so I imagine that'll be explored deeper going further. And I also think just the overall narrative here was pretty good because it builds off of what's already been established with some characters we're very familiar with, and I think it makes sense. But I do have to say the way they defeat the main villain is really lackluster and underwhelming to me. It's like some actual Soul Eater shit with like a friendship punch kind of thing. Hopefully it's not like a spoiler or anything. That's not at all what happens. I'm just giving an example where someone extremely strong was defeated by something very trivial that to me wasn't that satisfying. It felt like the journey there warranted a much bigger conclusion than what we actually got in the film. But either way, I did think it was a good narrative leading up to it, and the way they're executing the multiverse here I think is really enjoyable. It's clear that they're really embracing the wackiness of some of it, with one dimension in particular where they have a whole new cast of characters that it's not the Avengers or S.H.I.E.L.D. or anything like that. They actually call themselves the Illuminati, which is very like on the nose kind of shit. But the heroes they have there are really interesting. They introduce a new character there that I've actually never heard of called Black Bolt. I thought he was super cool, even though he didn't get like a great time to shine or anything. Just a really cool addition, as well as bringing in a couple other characters that you may have seen in other Marvel properties that aren't MCU canon, at least not as of before this movie. And just bringing them into the multiverse to give them some moments of having like some cool shit happen. I've been really enjoying what they've done with the multiverse, and I think the new Doctor Strange movie does a great job with it. And I also think Doctor Strange himself, the character of Doctor Strange, is becoming very, very interesting. He tackles a lot of like guilt with how he handled the Infinity War and Endgame saga, where he gives the Time Stone to Thanos. He deals with like, I broke the rules, but now I'm a hero. Do I deserve it? Am I happy? As well as exploring his relationship with Christine. And I think they just do a really good job. I enjoyed it a lot. I don't have really any major complaints about the film other than like the couple of ones I mentioned here. But nothing like ruins the movie. It's not bad by any means. I enjoyed it. I will say I was a little underwhelmed with all of the hype that we're saying, like, you have to watch every Marvel movie ever to understand the scope of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. It's bringing everything into the fold. It doesn't. You can get away with watching maybe like 3 or 4 Marvel movies as well as one of the shows in particular, and you will get the entire scope of this movie. They don't bring in everything from the MCU here. They bring in bits and pieces, but not a ton. It's like a very self-contained thing. Though the most important part is something that you'll need to get from one of the shows, admittedly. Also, there's one more thing I'd like to point out, and this one is actually pretty big. There are some times in this movie where the characters will end up somewhere after falling aimlessly, wandering aimlessly, traveling, and they'll end up somewhere inexplicably, and it happens to be in a good spot or a bad spot or something. It's really hard to talk about this without spoilers, but there are some times where they'll end up somewhere and it somehow helps, but it doesn't make any sense when you stop to think about it, how it helps or how they got there or how this contributes or how they're able to do some certain things here. It's just there's a lot of inexplicable nonsense that looks cool but doesn't really connect super well. It just leaves you scratching your head like, oh, I mean, that was fucking awesome to look at, but excuse me, what? You know, it's one of those things where it just doesn't really work narratively, like for the plot and some shit that happens. Again, really hard to talk about without spoilers. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying. Just there's a lot of nonsense that'll happen that happens to look cool, but doesn't really make sense in the context of the film. So yeah, you know, plot holes kind of thing. Anyway, plugging Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness into the Moist Meter, I'm giving it an 80%. I enjoyed the movie. I liked it. Yes, there is some cheesiness. I understand why some people might not like certain things about it, but I liked it. I thought it was fun to look at. I enjoyed the horror elements that were woven into it. Yeah, there are some lackluster moments and some holes with some of the shit that happens, and especially some moments with the script, but nothing's like terrible. Nothing ruins the film. It is still a really enjoyable movie to watch. And I do like what they've done with both Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch in this movie. I think they've done a wonderful job, and I am excited for more from the multiverse. That's about it. So yeah.
Initiating moisture protocol.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today I'll be analyzing the wetness found in the new Avengers movie, Infinity War. This is the third Avengers movie, the second being Age of Ultron, which was a huge stinky diaper of a movie. Just a big old shit stain. If your wife had invited Age of Ultron over when you were at work and she had sex with the movie Age of Ultron, you would forget that your wife ever cheated on you. That movie is so fucking forgettable, it's disgusting. It's a really not good movie, and I had very low expectations for this one, and I'm really happy to say I was extremely surprised with this. It is extremely good. The best superhero movie I've seen, easily. Now, the plot's pretty simple. After a lot of failed attempts from Thanos to get the Infinity Stones, he decides to come in person, raw, no rubber, nuts to butts, to get the Infinity Stones himself. and he is one hell of a big bad. I love that they didn't just make him this comically evil character that no one gives a fuck about, because not no one gives a fuck about, but no one can sympathize with, no one can, rationalize what they're doing. They really fleshed him out and humanized him with motives that some people might even say were just and might even support what Thanos was attempting to do. And I really liked that. It was a villain that you could really feel for and even at times root for. A very human villain, but still a villain and a real fucking badass. This is how you do a big bad in a movie. Fantastic, absolutely spectacular villain. I really, really enjoyed them. I really enjoyed him a lot. But let's get to the things that I didn't enjoy about this movie. I hated what they did with the Hulk. It was just so yucky what they did with the Hulk. They made the Hulk the biggest pussy in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I thought maybe at the end it'd be redemption for the Hulk and he'd come out and have his big shining moment and was a super badass, but that didn't happen. They just made the Hulk laughable and just really upsetting. Kind of a spit in the face to Hulk fans, in my opinion, because there was no reason for it. They didn't justify why the Hulk is all of a sudden afraid of his own shadow. They didn't justify why the Hulk is just not anything cool anymore. There's no reason for him to be so pathetic. It'd be better if they had Peter from the new Deadpool movie trailer, who has no superpowers but still skydives. He would have done more in this movie than the Hulk does. Fucking sad, honestly, because the Hulk's one of the best characters. Another thing I really didn't like is the heroes never really outplay their opponents or outstrength them or really beat them. All the big bad guys they kill, like the lieutenants, the captains and stuff of the Thanos' army, they kill them by stabbing them in the back or ambushing them from behind. They just get them when they're not expecting it. They catch them with their pants down. And that's not really heroic or really cool to watch. It's like, oh, well, you just kind of fucking cheated there. Even 1v1s on Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 on Rust had more integrity to them. This is just kind of a letdown when they kill one of the bad guys or something like that. There's also a lot of pacing issues with the movie because there's so many characters, each doing their own little separate storyline to tie back into getting at Thanos. So there's a lot of pacing issues here. Not a huge complaint, but it is a complaint nonetheless because that is an issue. There's also a lot of really silly plot moments that just make no sense and are really stupid, but it's a superhero movie. You can expect that kind of shit to happen. Now, what this movie does right is everything else. The humor in this movie is very reminiscent of Thor Ragnarok, which is really good. So the humor was on point for the most part, save for a few lackluster, stinky ones they tossed in there. But overall, humor was great. The visuals, per usual with a Marvel movie, spectacular, really good. The fighting scenes were really interesting because it'd have the reality bending stuff with Doctor Strange and also the Infinity Stones being tossed in there. So it wasn't just, slap fighting or like jerking off each other until someone comes and that's the end of the fight or anything. There was a whole lot of different new ways of fighting because there's the Infinity Stones at play, there's magic at play, and all the heroes using all their powers and shit. Really, really cool to watch a lot of the fights unfold, at least up until the end of the fight when one of the other heroes runs up behind the enemy and ties their shoelaces together to end it. Another great thing about this movie is the ending. Best ending in a superhero movie I've seen. I respect the shit out of what they did there. They actually pulled the trigger on some really important character deaths. Don't know if they're going to stay dead because there's going to be the sequel to this movie coming out next year, obviously, but as it stands, I'm really satisfied with what they did at the end. They committed to a sad, unhappy ending, which is very uncharacteristic of modern superhero movies. I know DC kind of takes cum shots in the dark to try and make their movies very grim and sad, but they're usually not. They're just laughably bad for the most part. But this one actually did have a very, sad ending. And I'd like to shout out Tom Holland's acting because that dude is killing it. If you're watching this, Tom Holland, come on the podcast. I want to tell you right to your face that you're a fucking great actor. Best Spider-Man. I used to believe that Tobey Maguire was the best Spider-Man until this movie. Tom Holland, you sold me, man. You're the best Spider-Man. You're the real Spidey. I really can't gush enough about this movie because it really does everything a superhero movie should do, and it does it really well. Save for a few pretty big issues with pacing and the other things I've mentioned, but it's still a complete package that I think anyone who's followed Marvel movies will really enjoy and really like the payoff. I don't think you'll like what they've done with the Hulk and to an extent Star-Lord, but everything else is right on point and all the characters really shine. Now let's go ahead and plug this shit into the moist meter. I'm going to give this an 88%. That's a bit of an arbitrary number, but I want to let it be clear that it's the highest superhero movie score I've tossed out because I think this is the best superhero movie I've seen, but I don't think it's quite like a 90% moist meter movie. I think it's just below that because it does have quite a few issues, but it is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal, and I am beyond shocked at how great it is. And I don't think I've looked forward to a movie in a long time like I have right now for Infinity War Part 2 or whatever the fuck they're gonna call it. I'm really, really fucking excited to see how this wraps up. So yeah, that's it. See ya.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at Spider-Man No Way Home. I watched this movie sitting in the front row of the theater, and I want to quickly complain about that because that shit sucks. It stunk my ass up. Either move the front row back or make the front row tickets cheaper. No one wants to sit that close to the screen. You fucking herniate a disc in your neck looking up at it. It's awful. It's miserable. Sorry to be so brave, much like Spider-Man, I too am a hero, talking about real issues here. Fucking fix the front row. But anyway, the movie itself was great. It's like Uncle Ben said, with great power comes great moist metering, and that's exactly what I plan on doing here. This is a hard movie to talk about without getting into spoilers, but I'm going to do my best. I'm going to keep this as spoiler-free as possible, so let's dive in. The movie starts off a lot heavier than I expected it to. You're seeing a lot of the fallout from the world finding out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and he's dealing with what comes with that. And I think they did a great job of really showcasing what it would be like if the world found out the identity of a fucking superhero. They really showcase just how people would respond to it and the controversy that would ensue. And I think they used that plot point really well to drive home the desperation in Peter Parker to go as far as to try and use magic, a forbidden spell, a jutsu, a genjutsu to trick the world into forgetting about Spider-Man. And in doing so, he brings the multiverse to his universe. Now, this again is not anything spoilery, but we're going to talk about the villains because they're all in the trailers. So if you've seen the trailers, you already know who's here. They bring in some villains from the other Spider-Man universes. So you have Doc Ock, Green Goblin, and Sandman from the original trilogy. You have Electro. You have the Lizard Guy. I think they do a great job of bringing them into this movie without it feeling cheap. I was a little worried going into it that they were just going to bring in all these familiar faces just for that wow factor for people that have watched the movies for a long time, but they use it really well. And they give the main characters, the main villains, a lot of room to breathe and develop them. Doc Ock, Green Goblin, and Electro in particular. Now, they're not like super fleshed out in the movie, but just being able to see them again and getting more from them, I think is great. Especially Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin. I thought he was a real standout, just a fantastic job all around. Definitely a highlight there. And then you have the two villains no one really cares that much about. It's Lizard Man and Sandman. They don't really do anything. They're just kind of there for extra bodies for a fight. The Lizard Guy will be like, yeah, hey Peter, I turned myself into a lizard, how about that shit? And Sandman's like, I have a daughter. And that's about all you'll hear from them for the entire movie until they fight each other. I'm not like super disappointed by that or anything, because again, I don't think they're two villains that are really loved in the franchise. I'm glad they put the attention on the characters people actually care about, Doc Ock, Green Goblin, and Electro. Electro I thought they did a great job with because I thought he was very underutilized in The Amazing Spider-Man, so it was good to bring him back and get to at least see a little bit more from him because I think he's a cool character at the very least. But the main focus of the movie is on the relationship between Peter Parker and MJ and Ned. It's their friendship and their journey and Peter Parker becoming a fucking man. He comes into this movie a boy and he leaves a chiseled, grizzled man. The movie's a lot darker than I expected it to. It gets a lot heavier than I thought it would, and I appreciate that. I like that. The character really grows. And again, I'm not going to spoil anything, and it's hard to talk too much about this movie without spoiling things, but I like how they use a lot of the new things they introduced with the multiverse possibilities, and also his relationship with Doctor Strange. I don't have many complaints about this movie. I feel as far as Spider-Man movies go, this is about the best you could ask for, but I do have some things I didn't like about it. but they're spoilers. So I'm going to do my best to be really vague. But towards the end of this movie, things get very convenient. Like, there's this montage where just everything starts working out, despite the things that they're solving being problems that have been unsolvable for a long time with some characters. But all of a sudden, they're able to start coming up with miraculous items that are doing some incredible things very quickly. Like, imagine you yourself sat down right now and out of nowhere just solved the mystery of antimatter and how we can use it. That happens like multiple times towards the end of the movie, with them being able to find solutions to problems that have been previously impossible for other people to solve in the universes. Fucking hard to things just get really convenient. Like, a lot of convenient things all start to happen and get solved extremely quick. Like within a matter of like 15 minutes, it feels like. Just out of nowhere, just eureka! I know how to solve everything now, all at once. And that's like my main complaint. It just feels like they realized the movie was going long and they couldn't like properly develop how they get there and how they start solving some of the things they do. So it's just, they just hit the lab and solve everything all at once. It's not a major complaint or anything like that, because I personally didn't mind it that much. It just felt a little silly to me at points there. But again, I think overall the movie is about the best Spider-Man movie you could hope for. Spider-Man 1 and 2, the original with Tobey Maguire, still have a very special place in my heart, but I really feel like Spider-Man No Way Home is probably one of the best Spider-Man movies you could possibly ask for, to be honest. It just brings so much here and so much to like about it. And they do a really good job of developing Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and I'm really excited to see more from Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the MCU. So yeah, just plugging Spider-Man No Way Home into the Moist Meter, I'm going to give it a 90%. I think it's very strong. I really enjoy it, but I don't think it's a 95%, which I was kind of debating on, because I feel like it's probably the best Spider-Man movie you could get. I just feel like there is a couple things that hold it back, but I can't get super into them in this review since I'm keeping it spoiler free. But I really, really did enjoy it, and I think they did a great job with it. So that's about it. See ya.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at Spider-Man Far From Home. It's another superhero movie, which means another couple thousand Redditors with their pretentious fart-smelling tendencies saying superhero fatigue is setting in, I swear to God, this time. Like fucking doomsday preppers holding up signs on the street. Superhero fatigue, it's coming! The end is nigh! But as long as the movies still get made as good as they are, it's probably not going to set in for quite a while. The only really bad superhero movie I can think of off the top of my head from the Marvel Universe is Ant-Man and the Wasp. That one gargled some filthy butthole, but aside from that, Marvel movies are just so goddamn well done, and Spider-Man Far From Home is no exception. It is extraordinary. I really liked it. In fact, it's probably one of my favorite ones, to be honest with you. I think the villain in this movie is second only to Thanos in the superhero villain world. I fucking love the villain, and it's not because he had like a relatable goal or goals that you really sympathized with or a character you really even cared about, but he was just so fucking cool, and Jake Gyllenhaal was so good as the character. I loved it. It was just really amazing. The visuals they were able to accompany with his character, the way they executed a lot of the scenes involving the character, everything about him was amazing, and the ending to this movie is extraordinary. It got me so goddamn excited. I can't talk about it because it is a spoiler, but the ending of this movie had me and the whole goddamn theater excited. And that doesn't really happen. I like superhero movies. I think they're fun, but I never get like all giddy, dick in hand, ready to ejaculate. But when the movie ends and you see, you sit through a little bit of the credits, you're rewarded with something fucking great that I think most people that are familiar with superheroes and shit can really appreciate, and I really just love the way they concluded it. The whole movie, though, was really good. The comedy lands per usual with most Marvel movies. It's really well executed in the comedy department. It tells a cute little story as well. Peter Parker, Tom Holland, he's just fucking great as Spider-Man. I really enjoy him. There's just no bad characters. There's really no bad moments in the movie. The only complaints I have are nitpicky ones about the story, because the story's it's kind of silly. Like, a lot of the decisions from the characters don't make sense. A lot of the scenes don't make sense. The story doesn't flow all that well, because a lot of it just doesn't make sense. You have to suspend your disbelief. You have the whole thing is about a field trip stretched over an adventure where a lot of bad shit's happening, and yet for some reason the adventure still continues despite if it being in the real world. You fucking an entire city getting destroyed. Travel would probably be shut down, and since it's a bunch of kids on a field trip, the parents would probably want the kids home. You just had a goddamn demon destroy a city, a literal act of God in manifestation of destruction destroy a city. Your parents are probably going to want you to call the vacation short, but yet it still continues over the course of a bunch of different locations. A lot of the decisions from the characters, again, that I can't touch on, don't really make sense to me. There's this level of trust that was never established as to why some of these characters are so trusting of one another. It's hard to explain without getting into spoilers, and I do try and avoid them. But that's the biggest complaint I'd have, is just that the story is kind of nonsensical, and a lot of it's set up for jokes, I imagine, because it kind of pokes fun at how ridiculous it is. There's a scene where Peter Parker gets on a train, and all of a sudden he's 3,000 miles away from where he started in the blink of an eye, and they use that for a conduit for jokes, and I guess that works too, but it's just kind of silly from a narrative perspective. And the only other issue I have with the movie is I really think Spider-Man was kind of lame in the first 2 or 3 fights. He didn't really do anything. He kind of just got his ass cheeks smacked on by the enemies. He didn't really impress me, and he has been impressive. Spider-Man is a really, really fun character to watch in the action scenes in all the previous movies, and it was really underwhelming in the beginning. He just kind of, tossed a pebble. He'd throw a little road sign at the monster. I mean, that's kind of underwhelming, you know what I mean? But at the end of the movie, he really pops the fuck off. The last fight scene with the main villain is really, really fun to watch. I enjoyed that a lot. Really, everything about the last 30 minutes of the movie, I was just giddy about. I really, really liked it a lot. The movie's definitely worth seeing. I think it's very fucking good. Plugging this shit into the moist meter, I'm giving Spider-Man Far From Home a nice 90%. I really like it. I know a lot of you kind of scoff at superhero movies, but they're just really well made. They're really well done. Comedy works in all of them. The action works in all of them. They have good stories. They keep setting themselves up for a really interesting story narrative perspective. It's hard to not like them. You can pretend you don't, but when you see one, it's always enjoyable. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. That's about it. So yeah.
Initiating moisture.
Moist meter. Have it your way. As long as that way is wet. Spider-Man Homecoming. I just saw that shit. What did I think of that shit? How moist was that shit? I'll tell you in a minute. So you have to wait to find out that shit. This is the 3rd new Spider-Man universe to come out in theaters. I'm happy to say it's a lot better than their last sorry attempt with the Amazing Spider-Man. And there is no ass shit in here. That is cool. It's just very boring fights that kind of just devolve into Spider-Man throws 2 punches and then glues someone to something with his webs. That's about the extent of it. And then when he sees Vulture, he throws a web and just kind of wrestles with him like it's a fucking remote control car out of control. It was just very underwhelming. So let's go ahead and pop this bitch into the moist meeting toaster, and we're clocking this at 75% moisture. I definitely think it's worth watching. It is a very solid superhero movie, and I think everything about it is very well done, except the very underwhelming action. There's not a whole lot of action here, and the action that is here is not very fun to watch. But I do think it is a very good movie, and definitely worth seeing for fans of superhero movies. That's it. See ya.
Initiating moisture protocol.
Hi there, and welcome to the newest entry into the Moist Expanded Universe. Today we're looking at the new Black Panther movie. I'm gonna go ahead and start with my biggest complaint about this, and it has nothing to do with the movie. The fucking troglodyte, Cro-Magnon, homunculus, cave-dwelling lunatic that sat next to me made this the most unpleasant experience I've ever had at a movie theater. She was so unbelievably loud at every single point in this movie for the first hour and a half. I swear to God, this might have been her first time seeing a movie. She'd only been explained the concept of movies, but hadn't seen it in practice, and she dove into this one, and of course sat right next to me. Every single thing that happened on screen, she was making a loud comment. And I don't mean just like a loud whisper or like a normal talking voice. I'm talking literally shouting like a fucking soccer commentator every time they score a goal. If a character breathed on screen, you were going to get an earful of what she thought about that nice deep breath or a speech. If there was action, God forbid there was action, she was louder than any sound effect. It was so bad to the point where 3 seats down, there was these 2 dudes that kept looking at me because I was sitting right next to her, giving me one of these bro nods, you know, one of these and then some of these, just enough to tell me, hey, get her to stop, as if I'm going to lean over and stick a binky in this bitch's mouth. She just would not stop being so disruptive to everyone in the theater, and of course she had her phone out because all children do. But luckily, just like all children with a sugar rush, she crashed. About an hour and a half in, she fell asleep. And that was my favorite part of the movie, when she slept. Definitely the best arc of the movie. But now let's get to the actual movie. It was fucking fantastic. I think this is probably Marvel's most visually breathtaking movie. The setting, the costume, the special effects, all of it top-notch, and I genuinely do believe it's probably Marvel's best. Also, Marvel at the top of their game in terms of music here. The music in this, the score, really, really surprisingly good. Extremely good, even. It was a very, very enjoyable eye candy movie with a lot of audio stimulus that's sure to get even the most stubborn of audio snobs erect. It was really good in both departments, but there were a few shortcomings here. The biggest one being comedy. Most Marvel movies these days have a lot of comedy in them. This one doesn't, and that's not a complaint. I actually like that it went for a more serious approach, but it did try and sprinkle some half-assed attempt at comedy in here, and it didn't land. Nobody in the theater laughed at any of them, and in fact, they even shoehorned in a tired old dank meme with a "what are those?" I wanted to leave right there, I'm not gonna lie. In fact, even a few people in the audience groaned when they shoehorned in a "what are those?" as a front row center stage joke in the movie. It was pathetic. But I really do like that this was a more serious Marvel movie. I just wish they really just didn't even bother with such bad jokes. I also think this movie has one of Marvel's best villains. Michael B. Jordan with Killmonger is a fantastic villain. A lot of viewers can really relate to him. He's very sympathetic, which is surprising because he has no problems just slaughtering a bunch of people, but still his cause is one that you can kind of rally behind. Even if you don't agree with his methods, you can still kind of support what he's going for, his ideals. The story here is also pretty good. I do feel like it's not as impactful on the universe as the other entries in the Marvel Cinematic Universe until the end, where Wakanda gets involved directly with the universe. That's about the biggest thing here, and it is a very big deal. But in terms of, you know, the bad thing that's going on in the movie here, it kind of just boils down to, well, we have some good weapons, we're gonna go ahead and give these weapons away. It's, you know, it's not really one of those things where like, shit, that's super fucking evil, oh my god, we gotta put the kibosh on that right away. But it's still a good story. Just to me, it's not one that really carries a lot of weight until the end with the Wakanda entering the world, basically. Another big complaint I have is the action falls into the same standard shit as a lot of standard action movies. It's taken levels of jump cut, stirring action. You can't tell who's getting hit or what's hitting them. For all you know, they're fighting a fucking phantom. You can't really make out the action at a lot of points in here, which is a shame because Marvel's been doing a pretty decent job recently of not making it just look like 2 action figures colliding in a washing machine like most action movies do these days. But I really just don't have a whole lot of complaints about this movie, so let's pop this shit into the moist meter. I'm giving this an 85%. Just another really strong Marvel movie here. I just don't have a whole lot to say about it without giving away any spoilers, so overall, just another good Marvel movie. That's it. See ya.
Moist Meter was brought to you by Amazon Music. Sign up for free below using our referral code.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at the Black Widow movie. This was supposed to come out a while ago, but it didn't, and now it did. So that's a pretty thrilling ride. What a story to tell. This movie feels old because it feels like there's absolutely no reason it should exist in the first place. I want to make it clear that I think it's a fine movie. Like, there's nothing like glaringly wrong with it. I didn't have a bad time. I wasn't sitting there with a frown and arms crossed and pouty because I wasn't having fun. It's a good movie, but it just feels like a giant nothing burger. Since we all know what happens to Black Widow in the MCU, all of the development that she experiences in this movie doesn't have any weight because it wasn't explored in the movies that came before it, which take place after it. And I really think that takes away from this movie massively. I can't really call it a nothing burger though, because there is substance here, and I think it does serve to introduce a few new characters into the MCU. But this movie should have come out years ago. This movie should have been released before we knew what happened to Black Widow, because it would have made all the development and the fleshing out of her character in this movie be more impactful and weighty in the universe going forward. So I just really think it was a stupid idea to do this after the fact, because it takes away from it. This is like going to your favorite French fry place. You know, you go to Checkers and you get these incredible orgasm-inducing fries, but by the time that they deliver them to you, they're cold. It's like, oh, I mean, the fries are still okay, I guess, but it would have been a lot better if I had gotten them sooner. You know what I mean? That's how I feel about this movie. This movie has everything a 14-year-old could want in a movie. It pretty much checks every single box for a generic MCU film. It has action, comedy, occasional emotional moments that don't last long, and then back to action and comedy. There's nothing wrong with that. I think the formula works. The MCU movies are extremely popular for a reason. I had fun watching it, and the action's really cool. Since Black Widow's not a superhuman, she's not going around slamming skulls together like Stone Cold's beers or anything and flying around, so the action is grounded more in reality. She's using martial arts, she's using weapons, and I think that's great to see, and I think it's choreographed well. I don't like the rapid cuts that the action has, but that's just a plague of most modern action movies, unfortunately. But they get creative with it. It's very over the top, which I always enjoy. I thought the new characters they introduced were fun. They're not like the most interesting characters of all time, but David Harbour put a smile on my face. I'm a big fan of him. So seeing him put on a Russian accent and talk about his glory days and how he got his hands pissed on by his dad, I thought was enjoyable. I also thought Florence Pugh's character was really cool as well. I thought she had some good lines. None of these characters are like super deep or anything, but I mean, it's a fucking Marvel movie, and this is their first time there. They haven't had the time to really build them out. This was mainly about Black Widow. And Scarlett Johansson did a great job with the character. Like, there's nothing wrong with the movie. Story's goofy, and I don't think it's like an incredible narrative or anything like that, but I thought the intro was really nice. They had like a James Bond style intro where they have Smells Like Teen Spirit remix, and they have like a whole anime music video and AMV going for Black Widow training and like what they've gone through, so that was cool. It really is overall, the movie's just fine. It's extremely forgettable. I know I'm going to forget this movie came out in a month, but for the hour and a half or however long it was I spent there, I enjoyed my time with it. But it really is a movie that serves no purpose unless they really want to explore David Harbour and have the Red Guardian have a standalone movie or make him like the new Captain America. This movie just doesn't do anything to push MCU forward. It's just a movie that I feel like they made because they felt obligated to. They kind of backed themselves into a corner and said they were going to do it, so now they just fucking did it. It's not exactly the most spirited MCU, nor does it try to be. It's just a by-the-numbers, formulaic superhero movie. I will say, though, that even though it is very generic, there are a couple things that I think people are going to find really silly about this. I don't want to get too deep into spoilers, but I will say smell becomes extremely important with the main villain. They have literal Stinkler smell gore powers here at the end out of nowhere, where all of a sudden, if you have a super sniffer, you're fucked. Because the main villain, he's like a smell sorcerer. He's got all kinds of stink, and using that stink, he might have some kind of secret abilities, which gets pulled out of nowhere, and it's so dumb that I couldn't help but appreciate it and the absurdity of it. Also, Taskmaster's in this movie, but they do absolutely fucking nothing. They keep hyping up Taskmaster as the raid boss, the villain's ace in the hole. If Taskmaster's called, your ass is getting fucked. But then they don't do anything. Every time they show up, they're unsuccessful in their mission. They just don't succeed a single time. And the character doesn't say anything. They just don't do anything at all with Taskmaster. And I think that's a really big missed opportunity, because Taskmaster as a character I think is great, and they completely blow that opportunity here. So that's just another thing I wanted to point out. Plugging Black Widow into the moist meter, I'm giving it a 70%. Like I said, it's an enjoyable way of spending some time, but I think most people will forget this movie came out in a month, if it even makes it that long in people's memories. It's just very generic. And knowing where the story ends up with the main character, Black Widow, takes away from this massively, because all of that development that they try and get in here in this movie doesn't translate to a movie that's already come out that tells the end of that character's story. So just doesn't even really make sense why this movie even came out, but it is out there. So if you just want to see some mindless action, it might be worth checking out. But that's about it. See ya.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today I'll be analyzing the moisture content found within the new Deadpool movie. If I was in a desert dying of thirst and you showed me Deadpool 2 and gave me no beverages, would the wetness of this movie alone hydrate me and allow me to survive? You're about to find out. I'm of the few people that thought the first Deadpool wasn't a masterpiece. I thought it was a good movie. I thought it was a very good movie at times. But I didn't think it was like this magnum opus of R-rated comedy to usher in a new age of boners. I thought it was just a good movie. But I can say with confidence that Deadpool 2 is significantly better than the first, and it's among a very short list of comedy movies that actually make me laugh really hard in the theaters. And the action in this one is a lot better than the first. So it's a great comedy, it's a great action, it's a nutsack with both testicles in it, which is what you want. My biggest complaint about the movie is the first 30 or so minutes of it. It's just overfilled with references that start to lose their luster, and I think it really boils down to them trying way too hard to emulate everything the first movie did, all the way down to the opening credits having the same kind of shit, made by these people with small asses, from the visionary director of The Last Time I Ejaculated, just kind of shit like that, and it makes you roll your eyes, because you'd seen it before, and it seems like they're just really trying hard to do that again, and it doesn't land very well, I think, in the first 30 or so minutes. It's a bit stinky. But the second the X-Force gets together, the movie becomes absolutely amazing. From that point all the way till the credits roll, everything just starts to click, and the movie gets this momentum that it never really loses. All of the new characters they introduce are all really good, except for, in my opinion, the main kid, Fire Fist, it's all kind of the same action. It's fisting with fire. I didn't think his character was all that great or super fleshed out or anything. He was just kind of like an angry kid. And he was just always angry until he just wasn't angry. I didn't think he was a great character, but all the others, Domino, Cable, Peter damn near stole the show, all of them just so fucking good. I really think this movie just has something for any audience member. If you're going to watch some action, it has a ton of action, all of it really good. If you're going to laugh, it has some great jokes, some really clever zingers and humdingers. Now, not all of them are going to land, obviously. Not all of them are going to be a knee slapper or a gut buster or have you ringing up your mom during the movie to say, "Goddamn, Mom, I'm laughing real hard." But a lot of them do land, and they're really well done jokes, and they have really great gags. I just think the whole movie is just so well put together once the X-Force gets together. Before that, it's a bit sloppy and stinky, like I said, but after that, everything works super fucking well. The soundtrack is one thing that I'd really like to make a note of because it impressed me so much. The soundtrack is fantastic, splendid, spectacular, second only to the Annihilation soundtrack, which is my favorite movie soundtrack. It's not quite to that level, I'm exaggerating, but it's a great soundtrack, but Annihilation soundtrack will always be better. It's a great fucking soundtrack, and they have this really great orchestral piece they made for the movie that I can't talk about because it'll spoil some story shit, but it's a great orchestral piece that I think anyone will appreciate when they hear it in the scenes that it's in. There's one more problem that I need to point out, and I don't have an explanation for why the movie's like this, but it points, the movie has some downright fucking abominable CGI, just some abysmal, stinky shit CGI out of nowhere that looks like it was made in Unity game engine. It's actually like a video game cutscene that didn't fully load and it didn't render all of the model's textures properly, so you're left with like this textureless husk of an object that's not believable at all. It would have been better if they just did like a Deadpool crayon drawing in place of some of that CGI. It was really fucking bad sometimes for no reason at all, just inexplicable, jarring, and distracting. But, I mean, it's still a very good movie. Let's go ahead and plug this shit into the moist meter. I'm giving Deadpool 2 an 80%. This should have been much higher. I want to give it a 90 because I laughed harder in this movie than pretty much any other comedy I can think of in a movie theater, and the audience was constantly laughing. Not every joke landed, like I said, but the majority of them did hit, and they hit really hard with the audience and me personally sometimes. It's a great fucking movie, and I think it has something for pretty much everyone to enjoy. If you want good action, you'll get it here. If you want good comedy, you'll get it here. It's also got this incredible showdown between two iconic X-Men characters that if you are a fan of comic books or superheroes in general, you've probably been waiting to see unfold on the big screen, and it's beautiful to watch. But even that kind of gets the unfortunate treatment of bad CGI during the fight. I really don't know why the CGI got so bad sometimes. That is a huge bummer. But the movie is still fucking fantastic. That's it. See ya.
Moist Meter was brought to you by Amazon Music. Sign up for free below using our referral code.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at Loki. It's extremely hard for me to get excited for anything Marvel related these days because we've just been inundated with the content for so long now, just constantly fisted with superhero shit, so I don't really get like giddy for the next big Marvel release. Not because I think they're bad or anything, I always do enjoy them when I watch them. I'm not one of those like aggressive Twitter users that are irrationally angry about Marvel stuff where they'll march into like a 8th grader's Avenger themed birthday party and just slam their fist into the cake and spit in their face telling them that it's bad movies. Like, I do find them enjoyable, they're just forgettable, and there's just way too much of it. I still haven't even finished Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but Loki I always found to be a very interesting character in the universe, so I definitely did want to finish this one. And I'm glad I did. I enjoyed it. I found it to be unique in the way that it introduces an absolutely major thing for the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward. I don't want to spoil anything about this because if you're going in here not knowing anything, I think it's going to be a lot better. I knew nothing about where this was heading, nor did I have any expectations, and I think it was better that way. I thought this was just going to be some kind of cash-in where it's like, you know, here's Loki in the past. He's pretending to be D.B. Cooper. Watch him fuck ass and eat pussy. But it wasn't really like a cash-in at all, I felt. This really seemed like they had a great idea for the character and how to progress the series forward. This wasn't just like a throwaway show. It really had huge implications on the entire universe of Marvel, I feel, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I respect that. I think they did it in a very bold way. I liked it quite a bit, to be honest. Of course, there were some things that were pretty weak about the show, which I'll get to in a minute. I want to start on a positive note. I really liked a lot of the new characters they introduced here. I think they introduced an extremely great villain too, by the way, but I don't want to spoil anything there. So I'll start with the new characters that I really liked. So obviously well, I probably can't even say my favorite character because that would probably be a spoiler too. So I'll start with my second favorite character, Owen Wilson. My fucking boy, Owen Wilson is in this movie, in this show. Wow. He crushes it. I fucking love Owen Wilson. I've always liked him as an actor. I think he's just charming and fun to watch. He plays a really cool character named Mobius, which is the name of a Yu-Gi-Oh card too, and just an awesome name. And when he's in any scene here, it's hard not to just like him. He just has like this sage wisdom about him and like this swagger that's just cute. Probably a weird word for it, but I don't know. There's something about Owen Wilson playing Mobius here that I just really appreciated. I thought there was a lot of chemistry between him and Loki, so they'd banter back and forth and it just felt pretty natural. And I could really respect that. It felt like actual conversations that two pretty smart people would have, where both of them are trained liars and both trained to pick apart lies. So it's like this battle of intellect that, you know, you'd watch as two Redditors duke it out in the comments. I just really liked Mobius. I thought the character did really well. I thought in the last episode it was a little, I'm not going to get... It's kind of hard to talk about this show, to be honest, because if you don't know what it's trying to set up, even talking about it's a spoiler. So I won't. But yeah, Mobius is great. Another thing I really liked about it is... a spoiler. Jesus Christ. The show's good. Yeah, I really like the narrative. Okay, this has a lot of things that I like. It has like a super secret organization doing some very big things that may or may not involve time. And I've always had a very soft spot for that. It oftentimes leads to really convoluted plot lines, but here I think they do a good enough job with it as a plot device. So I liked it. I also liked a lot of the visuals, but not all of them. Sometimes it really felt like it was unfinished at certain points. This is going to get into a couple complaints. There were times when watching this where I was like, man, that just doesn't look that good. Especially for something as huge budget as a Marvel production. It was like, wow, that kind of looks like ass. Like, there were definitely some moments throughout this where I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, what happened here? Who's using Maya in the college courses right now to make this? You know, it felt off sometimes. and the fighting was bad. Almost all of the action was pretty bad. There were very few times, like this is one of the rare Marvel shows where the action is not going to be the highlight. Because there were very few times in this where there was anything more than like a couple of punches that would get caught and turned to the side and then deliver a punch of their own, or maybe like a stab in the back. It was really underwhelming in terms of like the high octane action department. I also felt it was stupid that the bad guys use like electric batons with a twist. You would think with the kind of crazy technology this organization has, they would have the idea to use like projectiles because it's significantly more efficient, but they're just using like these 2-inch fucking wet noodle floppy dildo electric batons, and then they're surprised when it's a pretty highly inefficient weapon against most people. So that was kind of dumb too. But yeah, I thought that was like one of the glaring weaknesses of this is the action was really not good. Which really, I guess, does fit in line with Loki as a character. He's more about mischief and using intellect and wits to outsmart his opponents as opposed to just like brute force his way through it. But pretty much every episode has a couple of fight scenes and they're just not very good. There is other action besides just like hand-to-hand combat, and I think in that regard it's done well. I can't explain what kind that is, but because that would be a spoiler, but I do like that component as opposed to like the actual traditional fighting stuff, because it's kind of stinky. It doesn't really do super well here. It's a show that very clearly wanted the emphasis to be on its characters and its story, and I think it succeeds in that regard. That's not to say every character is good though. In fact, one of the main bad guys who's introduced, not the huge villain, but one of like the smaller mini bosses, is not fleshed out at all, and a lot of the things they say and do aren't really thoroughly explored nor explained and seem really weak because of that. So you'll have this character that's kind of this loose cannon, and they're doing things that don't really add up, and they're saying things that kind of contradict with the things they've been doing, and you never really know their goal or anything. And I imagine that's setting that character up to be a bigger character in Season 2, which is confirmed. But for Season 1, I feel like they still could have done a little bit more making this character a more grounded and fleshed out. I think it would have done wonders to make them more interesting. Because when they're there, it's more of kind of like this sigh, like, ugh, guess we have to, hear more from this character going on about something that we don't really care about. Would rather go to the bigger stuff. So that was a little disappointing. But overall, I did enjoy the show a lot. There are some weaknesses for sure, but I thought it was a very fun ride and a very interesting one, and I'm extremely excited to see where this actually takes the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This made me a lot more interested in the future Marvel projects, since it's going to be following the events that happened here, I imagine. So that was nice, and yeah, let's plug this into the Moist Meter. I'm giving Loki an 80%. I think this is absolutely worth a watch. I think this is probably the better Marvel show they've made so far. I thought it was enjoyable. It never really falls off or anything. Like with WandaVision, I was really enjoying the first few episodes, but as it continued on, I got less and less interested and really didn't like the conclusion all that much. But here, I was interested the whole way, and it only kept increasing as it kept introducing more and more wrenches into the cogs of the story. And I appreciated that. I thought it was very well done. That's about it. See ya.